Hey everybody, today I'm going to be talking about Teotihuacan expansion period. Now this is the third expansion to Teotihuacan, which in my opinion is one of the best Euro games to come out in recent memory. Much like the first expansion, this one is completely modular. You're going to pick and choose which elements you want to add into the base game, and I will assume that you know how to play the base game if you're watching this video. So much like the original game and the other expansions, this one is designed by the original designer Daniele Tascini and David Turtzi, who is a great designer in his own right. And I will talk through the different elements independently and maybe give an overall impression at the end. So the first element that you can add into this game is a new resource called obsidian. Now this is going to be a wild resource, which is going to be naturally extremely sought after, very powerful and very flexible. And this is also going to do a good job of speeding the game up because, as I said, it's going to make you more flexible and can kind of dip and dive into the strategies you want to take. Now, because of the new expansion, or the new element of obsidian, you are going to add a new few player boards just to make sure that you can actually get that resource in the first place. So your wood board, your gold board, and your stone board are now going to have additional slots on like this to show that you can pick up obsidian. Now, This I think is a very welcome addition because it is going to speed the gameplay up quite a bit, especially if you want to add all those additional modules in, not only from this expansion, but from the original expansion. So yeah, this is kind of a tried and tested mechanism for games like this, and a welcome addition in my opinion. Now, the second element to this game is the shaman's tiles, and these shaman tiles are going to slip in to the gaps in between the main action spaces on the main action board. So it's going to be a completely new element to the game and a whole new decision to make. So every player is going to get given a shaman at the beginning of the game, and then you are going to, well, in turn, going to allocate these to these boards. And what this means is that as a separate action, you can choose to move these counterclockwise from tile to tile, and these are going to be set up randomly and get the corresponding reward. So for example, you can get obsidian, you can get obsidian and move one of your dice counterclockwise around the board to line things up. You can spend obsidian to unlock all your dice on the worship spots, or you can spend food to get obsidian. So nice ways to kind of synergize with getting obsidian. And as you can see, you've got these arrow spots on these shaman tiles, which means that when these shaman are on these spots, that the board that it's pointing to is going to get bolstered by that shaman, which is going to basically count as an additional dice, which is, I think, is a really cool addition. It's going to add a bit more complexity to the game, but still not too much. Now, as you can see here as well, you've got these slots here for these resources or these discovery tiles, and you might notice that the iconography is slightly different because this game introduces these special discovery tiles, which are a lot stronger than the ones in the base game, and can give you very powerful instant rewards. I'm not going to go into massive detail on all of them, but as you can see, they're quite powerful here, such as getting 3 obsidian, leveling up 3 dice. So yeah, lots of things you can do here. Now, these do work very much in the same vein as the original discovery tiles, except when it comes to any kind of scoring mechanism or technology that relates to technology tiles, then it's not going to relate to these stronger ones. So that's kind of counteracted and balanced out in that way. Now, on top of that, you've got some things that are going to slip in a bit more seamlessly. You've got this one here that's going to correspond to the shaman tiles, which is a new weather tile, which relates to some of the earlier expansions. You've got a couple of new starting tiles, and you've got some new technology tiles, which again will match up with the obsidian element of the game, such as being able to, or whenever you take a random resource or a wild resource, you can take an obsidian. You can spend obsidian to get food, and I believe every time you cross the one spot, you can gain an obsidian. A new module in this expansion is also this mansion board. Now, this mansion board is going to directly replace the palace board if you choose to wish to use it, that is. And this is going to make the number 1 spot slightly more interesting and a bit more of an incentive to go there. So not only in terms of the board itself, you've got these 3 new worship spots which you can choose to use, which again use obsidian, but this action board is going to work slightly differently, where if you're on the main spot, that is going to, or with your dice that is, that's going to boost the strength of the dice in the worship spot. So For example, if I had a 3 on this spot here, normally I'd only be able to convert a obsidian into a food and 2 points 3 times. But if I had an extra 2 dice here, then I'd be able to do that 5 times. So again, makes it slightly more interesting and slightly more valuable to go to this slot. But additionally, these spots here basically correlate to a new element of player interaction, where there's going to be a race to get to the first landmark spots on each of the temples, because when you do so, you're going to claim one of these almost like claim markers, which means that whenever anybody starts to use these worship spots after those are claimed, then the person who has already claimed that kind of certain spot is going to be able to ascend one of their dice, which is really nice. Additionally, the other people are going to be able to spend a food to go up any other temple. So that's really nice, and adds, again, a bit more value to this certain spot. And on top of all of that, you're going to be able to spend a food to get one of the upgraded discovery tiles. So I think this is going to be almost a no-brainer to include this in every game. Again, makes that number 1 spot much more valuable to go to, which I think is a good thing. There's also going to be a few new unique player powers that you can add into the game, and again, these are going to slip in quite seamlessly, especially if you want to use the obsidian resource. You've got this one here that basically means that at the start of the game you are going to choose a random technology tile, and that's going to be solely unique for you and nobody else can use it. So that can be quite a powerful one should you get a good technology, but the punishment for that is that whenever anything requires obsidian, you have to explicitly pay that. So you can't really use obsidian as a wild. It's almost like an independent resource. You've got this one here as well, which basically means that whenever you collect cocoa or worship at a royal tile or gain a mast, you can stand your shaman up, which basically means you're going to get more use out of bolstering your other actions. But to do that, you're going to have to actually pay to keep your shaman, which can be a bit of a burden. There's also a couple of solo powers here, which I won't go into because I don't tend to play the solo game. And the final module is this one here, which I think is probably the most significant. It's going to add a whole new dimension into the game, a bit like the shaman element, where in this one you've got this new, I suppose, Teotihuacan discovery module, which means that whenever you go to this particular spot, which is going to replace the Avenue of the Dead board, you are going to get the option to not only do the Avenue of the Dead, but also to allocate these warriors, which are new meeples, onto this board here. You're going to start in Teotihuacan, and from then on, anytime anybody goes to that spot, they're going to push you along one of these tracks, and you're going to initially choose which way to go to, either above or below this kind of dividing line here. And for every time you do that, you are potentially going to get more points when it comes to scoring phases, because the further you get, the more points you're going to get. But additionally, you can choose to build. When you choose to build a building by choosing to spend 2 wood, then you can potentially claim one of these spots and not only get the points there, but also get quite a powerful reward by doing so, such as gaining brand new masks, which are going to massively increase the amount of points you can get from masks, gaining obsidian, upgrading your workers, going up temples, all the good stuff that you can imagine. So again, another different thing to try, and something that's going to synergize a bit with the Avenue of the Dead track, and going to give you more options to do so. You're going to get the board here, which relates to the first expansion by climbing up that orange temple. But if you aren't including that module, then you can do it without as well. So overall, I think this is a solid expansion. I particularly like the obsidian element because, again, it can just completely mesh in seamlessly and make players a lot more flexible and make things a bit breezier and a bit quicker, to be honest. I think this is interesting, the shaman element. I think that's something that you can play in, maybe with players who are very familiar with the game, gives you newer decisions to make. But I probably wouldn't include it in every single game because I don't think it's entirely necessary. But they are powerful and are going to give you some good options should you need it, especially because it's all based around that obsidian. The mansion element I think is fantastic. This is a no-brainer, as I said, something that I'll include every game. I think it doesn't do anything to make the base game any worse. I think it makes it better in every way. And certainly wouldn't even consider not playing with this one. This element here, I think, although I like it and I can see what they're trying to do here, I do think it's slightly tacked on and maybe not as necessary as some of the other stuff. I can see why people might want to include this if they, if they play Teotihuacan a lot, want to try something different, add a bit more variety. But I wouldn't say it's going to increase or improve the gameplay much. It's just going to simply add a bit more housekeeping and maybe make the game even more sprawling, because there is, it's quite a big game anyway, especially if you want to play with some of the earlier expansion modules, such as the orange temple, etc. This is only going to completely, spread that even more, and venturing on being bloated, in my opinion. Additionally, if you're very familiar with playing this game and play it a lot, then I don't think this is going to be an issue. But I would say that with so much stuff now, it is venturing and walking on that tightrope of being bloated. You've got so many different boards now that I think there's quite a lot of exceptions where, if you want to play with this module, use this board and not this board. If you want to use this module, take some of these tiles out. And that can be a bit fiddly, and there's quite a lot of minutiae and different kind of exceptions and circumstances where you want to include things and not include other things, because it's not like a seamless integration of all these things, and you're going to have to pick and choose quite carefully, which is going to manipulate the setup quite a bit. But I'm being a bit pedantic there, and I think if you're going to get the third expansion to this one, you're probably going to be quite invested in Teotihuacan anyway, so that's probably not going to be much of an issue. But for me, it's going to be a bit of a problem because I don't play the game terribly often, and every time I'm going to go back to it, I'm going to have to think, oh yeah, this expansion means this means this. If I use this expansion, I'm going to have to take this out, and yeah, that's just a bit fiddly in my opinion. But overall, it's a solid expansion. Certainly more variety. Some elements are going to increase the gameplay and make it better. Some are just going to be a bit more of a sidestep, but offer more choices. But yeah, certainly nothing bad here, and that's probably expected by designers of this pedigree. So check this one out if this appeals to you. Again, a solid expansion and just more stuff for Teotihuacan. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.